Okay, stop what you are doing. Put down the coffee, pull the car over, pause the other notifications on your phone. This is not a drill. I repeat, for the first time in what feels like a geological age, this is absolutely not a drill.
I can honestly say, seeing the news drop, I would check the date 3 times just to make sure it wasn't April 1st. I looked for the satire tag, I looked for the parody account check mark, but it's real.
It is so, so real. We have been talking about this in the fantasy community, in the literary world for what feels like decades. The rumors, the almost deals, the whispers in the dark.
Yeah.
Brandon Sanderson, the machine, the titan of modern fantasy, has been quietly shopping the rights Cosmere. For the longest time, it was just, or near miss.
It was the industry's biggest will they, won't they. It never made sense. You have an author who arguably sells more books than anyone else in the genre currently writing. He has a fan base that rivals religious fervor, and yet no screen adaptation. It was baffling to a lot of analysts. Why is this massive IP just sitting on the shelf?
But the wait is over. And the result is, well, it's insane. It is officially confirmed. Apple TV Plus has entered the chat, and they haven't just dipped a toe in. They have bought the right to the full Cosmere adaptation.
And that word full is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. We aren't talking about a single book option. We aren't talking about a pilot script that might just, wither on the vine.
No, this is the whole enchilada. And the way it happened, the source material we're looking at today describes it perfect. Apple stepped in quietly, found the opening, came out. It's a mass aggressive.
It changes the landscape of streaming fantasy entirely. This is the flag being planted.
So here is the mission for this deep dive. We are not just going to fanboy and fangirl over the fact that we might finally see Kaladin's Stormblessed on a screen, though, let's be honest, we will do a little bit of that.
A little bit is allowed.
But the real goal is to unpack this. We need to look at the specific terms because they are unprecedented. We need to look at the creative partners involved, specifically why Apple is the one doing this. And we need to answer the big question. Why does this specific partnership imply a different fate than, say, the Wheel of Time or the Rings of Power?
Exactly. This isn't just a purchase. It's a restructuring of how an author relates to a studio. We're talking about rarefied control and a financial commitment that is, frankly, staggering. If you care about the future of fantasy on screen, you need to understand the mechanics of this deal.
Let's dive into the source material. We are primarily analyzing a breakdown by Daniel Green. If you don't know him, he's a massive voice in the fantasy community on YouTube. He's, one of the go-to guys for this stuff.
Oh, yeah, he's a huge deal.
And he dropped a video titled, Mistborn and Stormlight are getting adapted, Apple TV Plus deal explained. And just to place us in time, he mentions that his favorite show of 2025 is a show called Pluribobit.
Which is a great little timestamp, letting us know this is happening in a contemporary context where the streaming wars have matured a bit. We've seen the failures, we've seen the successes, and now we're seeing the next evolution. We aren't in the throw money at everything phase of 2020 anymore. Studios are picky. So the fact that this deal happened now says a lot.
It really does. So let's start with the partner. Section 1. Why Apple TV Plus Green? Because, let's be real, for a long time, everyone assumed it would be Amazon because they have infinite money, or maybe HBO because they have the prestige. But Apple took the prize. Why them?
Money. That is the short answer. But it's not just money. It's liquidity. It's cash on hand. Daniel Green makes a point that is really important to grasp. Apple has an ungodly amount of money.
Ungodly is right. I mean, we look at Amazon and we know they have deep pockets. They dropped $1 billion on The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. That was the headline for years. The $1 billion show. It seems like an unreachable ceiling.
It did. It felt like the absolute peak of what a studio would be willing to spend. And Green posits a fascinating what-if scenario here. He suggests that for Apple, $1 billion is, well, it's manageable. It's a rounding error.
A rounding error? That's terrifying.
It is. He speculates they can theoretically drop a $2 billion budget for a Stormlight Archive show just to show them up.
Just out of spite. Oh, you spent $1 billion, here's $2. Keep the change.
I mean, it sounds absurd, but when you look at Apple's cash reserves compared to even other tech giants, they are in a league of their own. And this matters for fantasy adaptation specifically. The biggest killer of fantasy shows is the budget cap.
Oh, absolutely.
You start cutting corners on CGI, you start shrinking the battles, and suddenly the magic is gone. The epic scale just evaporates.
Right. You get that CW drama look where everything is filmed in a hallway or a forest in Vancouver because they can't afford to show the dragon or the cat. But Green raises a funny point about the psychology. He asks, do we want the creative restriction of a lower? There's that old film school theory that limitations breed.
It's the classic Jaws argument. The mechanical shark was broken half the time, so Spielberg couldn't show the shark.
Yeah.
He had to use music, barrels, and reaction shot. And the movie was scarier for it.
Exactly. So maybe less money makes better art. Is that the take?
But then Green pivots and says, actually, no, not for this. There are too many stories of shows going bad because they look cheap. He says, Apple, just do them good. You can afford it. And I think he's right.
And that's the reality of the Cosmere, specifically the Stormlight Archive. You cannot do the Stormlight Archive. Just can't. This is in Game of Thrones, where 80% of the show is people talking in rooms wearing velvet.
Right. Roshar, the world of Stormlight, is alien. The flora is different. It pulls into the ground to hide from storms. The fauna is crustacean-based. You have Spren, literal spirits of emotion floating in the air around characters constantly.
Constantly. They're a part of every scene.
You have high storms that look like hurricanes on steroids. It requires a level of visual effects that frankly hasn't been sustained on television before. Maybe in film for 2 hours, but not for 10 hours of TV season after season.
So you need ungodly money just to make it look like the book description. Not even to make it look good, just to make it look right.
Precisely. If you cheap out on the Spren, the whole emotional resonance of the magic system fails.
Yeah.
If the shard plate looks like plastic cosplay armor, the immersion breaks. Apple is one of the few entities that can write that check without blinking.
So the financial might is there, check. But what about the vibe? Because money doesn't always equal quality. We've seen expensive flops, we've seen billions burned on bad scripts. Does Apple have the pedigree?
This is where the source material gets really optimistic. Green argues that Apple has quietly built the best track record in sci-fi and fantasy over the last few years. While everyone was watching HBO and Netflix fight, Apple was building a fortress of genre fiction.
Okay, let's list the receipts. What are we looking at here? Break it down for us.
Well, you start with Severance.
Incredible show, mind-bending, distinct visual style, high concept, genuinely one of the best things on TV.
You have Silo.
Also fantastic. Great world building, claustrophobic atmosphere. It proved they can do dystopian sci-fi adaptation and respect the source material.
For All Mankind, it's alternate history, but the scope and the production value are top tier. And then crucial for this discussion, Foundation.
Foundation is the big one, right? Because that's adapting Isaac Asimov, which was considered unfilmable for decades.
Precisely. Foundation is massive in scope. It spans centuries, it jumps between planets, it's philosophically dense. And while book purists have their arguments about the narrative adaptation, visually and production, it is staggering. It looks like a blockbuster movie every single episode.
That's the bar. And Green also mentions Ted Lasso and Shrinking as exquisite, just to show they can do character work. They aren't just spectacle merchants, they understand heart. And he specifically shouts out Pluribabis as the best show 5.
Which suggests they are currently on a hot streak. His argument is essentially that Apple TV Plus might be topping HBO Max in terms of consistency.
Which is a bold claim given HBO's history. HBO is the gold standard, The Sopranos, The Wire, Game of Thrones.
But it's a defensible position. HBO has been going through mergers, cancellations, the whole Discovery debacle. Apple has been steadily building a library of high-concept, high-budget genre fiction. They seem to nurture these shows rather than churning and burning them. They don't cancel things after 2 weeks if the algorithm isn't happy.
That's a huge point, the patience. So they have the cash and they have the sci-fi chop. It feels like the perfect partner, to quote this. Now let's get into the meat of what we actually get, because for the longest time, we didn't know if it would be a movie, a show, an anime. What is the verdict?
We have 2 flagship projects confirmed, and they are splitting the formats, which is fast. First, the Stormlight Archive.
The big one, the 10-book epic, the one everyone thought was impossible.
That is going to be a TV show.
Perfect. Thank goodness. You cannot fit that into a movie. You just can't.
Absolutely not. The page count alone prohibits it. Each book is like 1,200 pages. If you tried to turn The Way of Kings into a 2-hour movie, you would have a montage of a guy holding a spear and then the credits roll. It needs the breathing room of episodic television.
Definitely. But the second project is Mistborn.
The heist story, The Final Empire, my personal entry point to the Cosmere.
And that is confirmed as feature film movie.
Which is interesting. Green seems relieved by this. He mentions he just finished a summary for that story, so it's fresh in his mind. Why is a movie better for Mistborn?
Think about the structure of The Final Empire. It's a heist. You assemble the crew, you plan the job, you execute the job. It has a very clear, propulsive 3-act structure. It maps perfectly onto a 2.5-hour film.
Whereas Stormlight wanders, it meanders. It's about the journey, the flashbacks, the slow burn of character development.
Exact. If you stretch the first Mistborn book into 10 hours of TV, you might find yourself treading water. You'd have to invent side plots to fill the time. A movie keeps the pacing snappy, it keeps the tension high.
That's a great point. So the formats match the material. That's a good first sign that someone is actually thinking about this, not just buying rights blindly.
It is. It shows intent. Now here's a detail that caused some debate in the fandom, but our source is ecstatic about it. Live action.
Yes, confirmed live action.
No anime.
No anime. And this is controversial because a lot of fans, myself included sometimes, have thought the only way to do the magic justice is animation. You know, how do you show allomancy or surge binding with real actors without it looking goofy.
Right, arcane style, or Castlevania. We've seen how good that can be.
But Green points out that Apple TV Plus generally doesn't do anime for their big epic. They want the foundation look. They want the prestige drama look. Live action is their brand.
Green's reaction was hilarious. He said despite always being open to animation, getting the live-action confirmation made him want to, quote, eat this banana excitedly.
It's a visceral image. I hope you enjoyed the banana. But why that reaction? Why is live action still the gold standard?
It speaks to that deep-seated desire fantasy fans have for validation. We love animation, sure. Arcane-proved animation can be a mess, but there is something about seeing it in live action that validates the genre in the wider cultural zeitgeist. We want to see a real actor in charge. We want to see the glowing eyes done with practical effects and CGI interacting with real environment. It feels like history.
It feels like it has arrived. Animation is still unfairly ghettoized as for kids or niche by general audiences. Live action puts it on the same shelf as Dune or Succession. It's taken more seriously, for better or worse.
Exactly. It's a play for the mainstream, and a play this big deserves a mainstream audience.
Okay, so we have the partner, we have the formats, but now we get to the part that I think is the most revolutionary aspect of this deal. This isn't just Apple bought the rights, thanks, Brandon, here's a check, go away.
Far from it. This is the rarefied control clause. This is the game jar.
Let's unpack that. What does it mean?
Usually when an author sells rights, the standard deal is you sell the you might get an executive producer credit. In Hollywood, that title is notorious. It can mean everything, or it can mean absolutely nothing. It can be a vanity title. You get a check, you get your name on the screen, but you aren't allowed in the writer's room. You definitely can't fire it.
Right. Like Stan Lee was an executive producer on every Marvel movie, but he wasn't writing the script for Thor or deciding the costume design. It's more of an honorific.
Exact. This deal, this is different. The source states explicitly Sanderson will be the architect of the universe.
Architect of the universe. That sounds ominous.
It means he has his hands on the lever. The source says he will write, produce, consult, and, this is the big one, have approvals.
Approvals. That's the magic legal word. That's where the power is.
It is. Consult means they have to listen to you, but they can ignore you. They can say, that's a nice idea, Brandon, but we're doing it our way. Approvals means they cannot proceed without your say-so on specific things. That is a level of power that the source compares to George R.R. Martin and J.K. Rowling and claims this actually goes beyond what they had.
Beyond Rowling. Rowling had pretty tight control over the Harry Potter film. She had script approval, casting approval on the main kids.
She did, but she wasn't the architect in the sense of building a multimedia interconnected universe from day one with a studio. Sanderson is coming in with the Cosmere, which is already an interconnected universe, and he is sitting at the head of the table ensuring the connections work on screen. He's essentially acting as the Kevin Feige of his own cinematic universe.
That is massive. It gives me so much hope because we've all been burned. We've all seen the adaptations where the showrunner decides, I can write it better than the author, and they change the lore and it breaks everything.
Yeah. And Sanderson is famous for his hard magic and his intricate foreshadowing. If you change one detail in book 1, like, say, how Stormlight heals a wound, it might break the plot of book 10. You need him there to say, no, you can't change the color of that gem because in 7 years, that's going to explain the plot.
There was a funny little detail the source caught in the press release about this control. Did you catch the AI thing?
I did. It was a blink and you'll miss it moment. Green noted there was a small typo in the press release, and instead of being unprofessional, he took it as a badge of honor.
He joked, I guess they're not using AI.
Which is actually a relevant point. In an era where everyone is terrified of AI writing scripts and generating content, a human typo signals a human process. And Sanderson has been very vocal about the value of human creativity. It aligns with the no AI philosophy that fans want to see. They want to know a person wrote this, not a predictive algorithm.
Now, with all this control writing, producing, architect, there is the inevitable question. The listener is probably thinking it right. Wait, Brandon writes 700 books a year. If he is running a TV show and a movie franchise, does the books stop?
The fear of the winds of winter scenario, the big one.
Exactly. Is he going to pull a George R.R. Martin and get so distracted by Hollywood that we never get the end of the books?
The source addresses this head on, and the prediction is, surprisingly, no.
Really? How is that even possible?
Green predicts Sanderson will stay true to his reputation as a writer. He admits it's a little scary to think about the workload, but Sanderson operates differently than almost any other author. He treats writing like a job. He clocks in, he has a staff, he has systems. If anything, this might just replace his touring time or his convention time, but the writing time is usually sacred.
It's true. The man wrote 4 secret novels during the pandemic just because he was bored and couldn't travel. He accidentally wrote 4 books. Who does?
Exactly. If anyone can juggle being a Hollywood mogul and a prolific novelist, it's Brandon Sanderson. He's optimized his life for out.
Okay, let's talk about the other humans involved.
Yeah.
Because Sanderson can't do it alone. We have a producer attached to the Stormlight Archive show, Theresa Kang. Who is she?
This is a deep cut that validates the quality argument we made earlier. Theresa Kang worked on Pachinko.
I haven't seen Pachinko, but I know the reputation. It's supposed to be incredible, right?
It sits above an 8 on IMDb. It's a critical darling. But more importantly, Pachinko is a multi-generational, sweeping historical drama with a massive cast, dealing with themes of identity, displacement, and war.
Which sounds exactly like the Stormlight Archive, just with more magic swords.
Precisely. Stormlight isn't just people hitting each other with big swords. It's about trauma, it's about history, it's about different cultures clashing, it's about colonization and slavery and class warfare. Kang has proven she can handle that kind of emotional weight and narrative complexity. The source acknowledges her talents directly, saying, "I'm well aware of your talent." It's a stamp of approval.
That is reassuring. It's not just an action producer, it's a drama. That's key. Now, the fun part. Casting. The internet is already exploding, I'm sure.
Oh, the fan casting has been happening for 10 years, but now it's real. The arguments are going to be glorious.
Green talks about his philosophy for casting characters like Kaladin, Vin, Shallan, Adolin, Dalinar, and he has a specific take. Borderline nobody.
It's the Star Wars strat, or the Game of Thrones strategy. You don't want to see Tom Cruise as Kaladin Stormblessed. You want to see Kaladin. If you cast a massive star, you see the actor, not the character. Especially for the young role. Vin needs to be a street. Kaladin needs to be a depressed, gritty soldier. You need fresh faces to sell that off.
I agree. You need people who are hungry, people who will embody these roles for a decade. But he makes an exception for the senior role.
Right. The Dalinar figures. The mentors. That's where you bring in the heavy hitters, like Sean Bean in Game of Thrones. It grounds the show, gives it gravitas, and helps with marketing. You put the famous face on the poster to get the casuals to click, and then the young unknowns steal their heart.
And there's a specific rumor mentioned in the source, a name that makes every nerd's ears perk up. Henry Cavill.
I can feel him sniffing around. That's the quote. And it just feels right, doesn't it?
He is sniffing around. And look, Henry Cavill is the king of nerds. He left The Witcher, basically, because they weren't sticking to the books. He loves Warhammer.
Yeah.
He probably has read the Cosmere.
If Cavill is involved, it's a huge signal to the fan base that the production is taking the lore. He doesn't sign on for cash grabs anymore. He signs on for passion projects. The question is, who does he play?
Oh, man. Is he a Kelsier? Is he a Dalinar? He might be in that awkward age range.
He might be a bit young for Dalinar, maybe a bit old for Kelsier, but he has that, and he has the physicality. Maybe a younger Dalinar in flashbacks. I don't know.
We'll leave that to the Sandcast. But just knowing he's potentially in the orbit is exciting. However, it's not all sunshine and roses. The expert in me has to ask about the risks, because we've seen big announcements before that turned into disasters.
The Wheel of Time situation. That is the specter haunting this conversation.
Green brings us up explicit. The Wheel of Time show on Amazon, it started rough.
It had production issues, COVID issues, and writing choices that alienated fans. It got better, as Green notes season 2 was an improvement, but it started with problem. The fear here is the nightmare.
What is the nightmare scenario?
You get one Mistborn movie, it underperforms at the box office, cancel this, or you get one season of Stormlight. It's expensive, the numbers aren't Game of Thrones level immediately, and they pull the plug.
And then you're left with an unfinished story on screen. Green says he would cry a lot in that scenario.
A Twitch streamer apologizing level of crying. It's a funny image, but the pain is... Imagine seeing the Shattered Plains for one season and then nothing. It's almost worse than never having it at all.
But there is a ray of hope here regarding the contract. This goes back to the deal itself.
Yes. Green speculates that Sanderson, being the savvy businessman he is, likely fought for a commitment. Similar to the Rings of Power deal, Amazon didn't just buy a pilot for LOTR. They committed to multiple seasons up front.
So they can't cancel it after season 1, even if they want to.
Exactly. It guarantees the story gets time to breathe. Stormlight is a slow burn. The first book, The Way of Kings, takes a long time to get going. It's a lot of world building. If they are judging it solely on the ratings of episode 2, it might struggle. But if they are committed to 2 or 3 seasons, it allows the audience to build. It allows the show to find its footing.
That leads perfectly into the next big anxiety, the George R.R. Martin fear. Not the writing speed, but the finished story issue. Game of Thrones, the show, overtook the books, and we all know how that ended. It was controversial, to be polite.
Right. The showrunners ran out of road and had to pave it themselves, and the quality dropped. And the Stormlight Archive is not finished. There are supposed to be 10 books. Only 4 were out at the time of some discussions. 5 are imminent. We're only halfway.
So are we walking into the same trap? Is the show going to run out of material and have to make up an ending?
Green argues no. And this is due to the unique structure of the Stormlight Archive.
Explain the 2 legs concept.
Sanderson has always described Stormlight as 2 arcs. Books 1 through 5 are leg 1. Books 6 through 10 are leg. And crucially, there is a time jump between them in the narrative.
So book 5 is a finale. It's not just a midpoint.
It is a conclusion. It wraps up the primary arcs of the current character, Kaladin, Shallan, Dalinar. Green argues that because the first 5 books have an actual conclusion, the TV show can adapt those 5 books and be a...
Oh, that changes everything.
These are actually, in some ways, 2 complete series. So if the show runs for 5 seasons and stops, it's a satisfying ending. It's not a cliffhanger. They don't have to invent an ending because Sanderson has already written the ending to this era.
That is a massive relief. It means they have a roadmap that is solid concrete, not just vague notes on a napkin like Martin gave to HBO.
Exactly. And even if they want to keep going, the time jump in the books allows for a natural break in production. If they need to wait for Sanderson to write book 6, they can take a hiatus, they can do a prequel, they have options.
It's incredibly well planned. It's almost like Sanderson engineers his books to be adaptable.
He's an architect, remember? He builds the house before he paints the walls.
True. Now, let's zoom out. We've talked about the show and the movie, but this deal was for the Cosmere. What does that imply for the future?
This is where we get into serious speculation territory, as Green puts it, but the implications are fast.
First, the money stuff. Merchandise.
If you own limited edition Stormlight or Mistborn stuffed leather bounds, pins, coins, hold on to them. Green points out that as the brand goes mainstream, the value of those collectibles skyrocket. Right now, it's a niche market. Once millions of Apple subscribers see the show, demand goes vertical.
And the music. He mentions scores.
A Stormlight Archive soundtrack. A Mistborn score. We've had fan-made music for years, but getting a Hans Zimmer or a Ramin Djawadi or a Bear McCreary-level composer to define the sound of Roshar, that's exciting. Music defines a franchise. Think of the Force theme or the Game of Thrones intro. The Cosmere is finally going to get its sonic identity.
But beyond the merch, what about other stories? If Mistborn and Stormlight are hits, what's next?
The source lists a couple of recent favorites, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter and Tress of the Emerald.
Those are the secret projects, the ones he wrote during the pandemic?
They are, and they are standalone, whimsical, deeply magical. If the main flagship shows work, we could see an animated Tress. We could see a Yumi mini.
It's the MCU model. You have the Avengers movies, that's Stormlight, but then you have WandaVision, that's Yumi.
Exactly. You have the pillars, and then you have the experimental spin-offs. And because the rights purchase specifically outlined Cosmere, it implies Apple has the option on all of it. They bought the universe, not just the planets.
That is mind-boggling. We could be looking at the next 20 years of fantasy dominance if they pull this off.
If they pull it off. That is always the if.
So let's wrap this up. We have covered a lot.
We have. It's a lot to process. A lot of good news. Feels strange.
To recap the major wins here, we have Apple TV Plus with ungodly amounts of money and a desire to prove they're the kings of sci-fantasy. We have confirmed formats, Stormlight TV show, Mistborn movies, both live action.
We have unprecedented author Control Sanderson as the architect with approvals, ensuring the lore stays intact. We have a producer, Theresa Kang, with a track record of high-quality, complex drama.
And we have a structure that avoids the unfinished book curse. It sounds almost too good to be true.
Green is cautiously optimistic. He's knocking on. But compared to other rumors we've heard, like First Law or Greenbone Saga, which seem to be in development hell, this feels real. It feels solid. The pieces fit.
The final feeling is definitely excitement, like eat a banana excitedly, levels of excitement.
It's the validation of a fandom that has been growing for 2 decades. It's our turn.
But I want to leave you with a provocative thought. We talked about control. Sanderson has the approvals. He is the architect. He is writing and producing.
Right.
Usually when an adaptation fails, we blame the studio. We say, oh, those executives ruined it. The writers didn't understand the books. They didn't respect the source material. But if Sanderson is the architect and it fails,
there's no one left to blame.
Exactly. Does this level of control actually raise the stakes higher? If it's bad, it's on him.
It's a double-edged sword. Total control means total response. If the dialogue is cheesy, pacing is off, the fans can't say Hollywood ruined it. They have to look at the creator. It's a brave position for him to take. He is putting his reputation on the line in a way few authors ever.
And here's another angle. If Apple creates a $2 billion show, does that break the industry?
That's the bigger picture question. If the standard for a fantasy adaptation becomes tech giant money and author as showrunner, does that make it impossible for new authors to get adapted? Does it create a barrier to entry where unless you are a Sanderson or a Martin, can't get a show made?
It might. We might be entering the era of the mega adaptation where only the whales survive, something to chew on while you wait for the casting announcement.
And waiting is what we do best as fantasy practice.
Ain't that the truth? All right, everyone, go eat a banana excitedly. Stay tuned because the Cosmere is coming. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.